Rabbi Jacobson, why did God wish to wipe out all of the Jews after the sin of the golden calf and the spies? Was that an overreaction?
I think it's important to understand when God says, let's take the story of the spies as an example, and I think that's a good paradigm for many other biblical stories. If you read the story on the surface without really getting the context, it can come across that God is extremely irrational and vindictive, always getting angry, very, very impulsive, and it can leave a very negative impression, which is why often religion is associated with so much dogma and fear when there's no proper context. But the story of the spies is actually a classic example. What happened was the spies came back from the land of Israel and they said, we're not capable of entering into the land. This is too scary. It's too frightening. It's too overwhelming. There are giants. There are mighty warriors. There are muscular fighters. There are large, powerful cities with tall fortresses. It's simply impossible. Now, here's the rule, my dearest friends. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are probably right. If you believe you can't do something, you're right. You can't do it. If I'm frightened and I feel I'm going to fail, I'm right. I'm going to fail. So the issue with the spies was that the Jewish people were overtaken by hysteria. They really felt they can't do it. And you know what? If you feel you can't do it, you can't. It was a formidable task. It was a serious challenge. If they would have had the faith, that itself would have given them the fortitude, the resilience, the optimism, the confidence. They didn't have it. So the natural consequence would be what? They would go in and they would get killed. So God said, what do they have to suffer and die a miserable death? They're finished their mission here. They'll pass on and they'll live in the next world in a wonderful life. Here, they'll just be overtaken by fear and they'll be slaughtered by their enemies. That's the story. Moses tells God, and he convinces him and says that the entire world is going to define this as God not being capable of taking the Jews into the land. He was simply not capable. So God said, okay, they'll stay in the desert. They finished their mission. They'll live here. And they had 40 incredible years. Only the next generation of Jews who lived in the desert and developed themselves in freedom, not in servitude, could enter into the land. So a punishment in the Torah or death is not vindictive or vengeance. It's basically when the soul finishes its mission or has nothing to do, you go back to where the soul came from, which is the soul was always part of God.
Was there no hope, for this generation? They had reached the point where God couldn't encourage them more? This was their mission. They were never, if this was their soul, they were never gonna be able to?
It seems that, you see, you have to understand something. It brings up a very great question that they have asked. Why is it that the first Jewish leader was not raised by Jewish parents? He was raised in a non-Jewish palace. Moses. You know, Moses didn't know what schmaltz herring looks like. You know that? He didn't know what sponge cake looks like. How is it? The first leader didn't even know what a Shalom Zacher looks like. I don't know, whatever. One of these Jewish parties. The answer is, the Ibn Ezra writes this, the Ibn Ezra from Spain. He says that if Moses would have grown up among Jews, he would have developed a slave mentality. He had to stage a revolution. To stage revolutions, you have to grow up with a mindset of aristocracy and royalty. He had to grow up in a palace to be able to upend Egyptian tyranny. You have to understand that the Jewish people were traumatized after 210 years of slavery. They could not believe that they have the ability to become a nation and fight the wars. And therefore, they would have entered into the land with tremendous fear and hesitation. So it was not meant to be, and it was only their children who can really confront it. And I think it's very comforting for us. They brought their children to where they can, and their children have to continue their journey. You know, sometimes people have unreasonable expectations of their parents. Your parents grew up with Holocaust survivors, or they are Holocaust survivors. They have limited tools. Be thankful that they took you out of Egypt, and now you'll go into the promised land.
Go ahead,
So
Rabbi
if I could
Block.
just add that I believe that when it comes to the golden calf and God's threat to destroy the Jews, that he had no intention of destroying the Jews, the Jewish people, at all.
So that's where all our parents learned to
He was
threaten
just
us.
he wanted to give Moshe an opportunity to shine, Moshe an opportunity to advocate on their behalf. And so that puts it in a different light.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, of course.
By the golden calf, it's interesting what Rabbi Black is alluding to. God tells Moses, leave me alone, hanichali, leave me alone. It's a quote from Exodus, and I will destroy the Jewish people. Leave me alone? What, he was controlling God? I mean, leave me alone. You know, you tell your spouse, leave me alone. He's like telling Moshe, like Moshe was his Jewish wife or something, or Jewish husband. Leave me alone. What was Moshe doing? He was choking God. He was forcing him to go to a hotel for the weekend, to the National Jewish Review. What was going on? So Rashi says, he quotes the Talmud, God was telling Moses, if you don't let go of me, I will not be able to destroy them. You're going to have to let go of me. If you don't let go, he was basically telling Moses, there are two dimensions to a relationship. One is law and order. You come in 9 to 5, you have to punch the clock. If you fulfill your duties, you're an employee. If not, you're fired. That's one level of a relationship. You created a golden calf, you betrayed the relationship, you went to another relationship, it's over. You didn't follow the marriage contract. Makes sense, it's over, we're done. The whole point of the Jews is to be the ambassadors of God. You betrayed me, you went to another relationship. 40 days after the wedding, in the middle of the honeymoon, One level. There's a different level of a relationship. It's like a mother and a child. Even if you break all the rules and it's painful, you're forever mine. So on one level of a relationship, God said, leave me alone, I'm done. There's no relationship here. But he said, leave me alone. Moses said, I'm not leaving you alone because you know that you still love them. They're your children. And God says, you're right. And both levels are so important to live and create a functional life.
Thank you. And what I'm also hearing is that really all of us are standing on their shoulders of the generations before us. And that's what the Jews in the desert were. The ones who went into Eretz Yisrael, they were on the shoulders of their previous generations, even though they couldn't get in. And that's us too.
It's a brilliant line from the Kotzker Rebbe. Somebody told the Kotzker Rebbe, I don't read the Bible anymore. It's filled with sins. Every portion is another sin, another rebellion. He says, I'm not such a sinner. He told them, from their sins, God wrote his Torah. From your mitzvahs, he won't write a Torah. Which means their sins were deep.
If you like that video, hit the subscribe button and notification bell below for hours of the best Jewish content online.